One conversation, three perspectives, honest debate on the stories shaping travel.
Each episode tackles a live issue, big trend, or hot debate across the travel industry.
Each week we'll be joined by guests for honest conversations, strong opinions, and lively debate.
I'm James.
I'm Andy.
I'm Will. Welcome to Let's Talk Travel.
The name ABTA is known up and down the land, but what role does it play for travel businesses in 2026? For any travel business which is an ABTA member, fees are increasing year on year, while many financial products now exist to offer the financial protection that they are after. From a support side, many network groups also offer advice, support and connection to rival what ABTA offers. And on the traveller side, many trust marks now exist to allow generations of people to book themselves without even thinking about people like ABTA or their compatriots. Today, we're asking what role ABTA plays in the world of travel in the UK and where it needs to up its game to meet the needs of the industry going forward. The Association of British Travel Agents was set up in 1955 to help bring together travel companies in the UK and raise standards in travel. It has since continued to grow and expand its reach and remit, merging with the Federation of Tour Operators in this week in 2008. It represents agents that sell £24 billion worth of travel in the UK, with 800 members and 5,000 retail outlets, offering a wide range of products and services around financial services, training, foreign exchange, and ultimately helping the travel industry to keep to its code of conduct. Yet despite all these great things, for some travellers and for some businesses, the name ABTA means very little. Many ABTA members have slowly declined since the peak of 1,200 a decade ago to around 800 today, losing big names like lastminute.com and Travelbag in very recent years. While some of that drop is due to changes in how travel is bought, there are many believe that ABTA needs to do more to improve and need to evolve. So today we're asking what role ABTA plays going forward and how it can improve. We're going to jump straight into this very hot topic because whilst the temperatures have dropped in the UK, we do think this is one of the hottest topics and episodes we're going to have recorded. So James, let's start with yourself. You've worked at ABTA. What is your view of where ABTA is now? And can you tell us a bit about your history of them?
So yes, I was very pleased to work at ABTA in 2015, so over 10 years ago now. I spent 3 years at ABTA working within their Code of Conduct Committee, which is one of their subsidiary boards and committees, which ultimately looks at the governance of the behaviour of their representatives, be it the travel agents and the tour operators, and listens and receives the feedback from the consumers. So it could be about, for instance, mis-selling of a holiday or an issue that they had with their holiday. And they would be that governance team to determine if further action should be taken. And that could eventually lead to monetary fines, which as a committee, we would decide how much. Now, being someone who is a consumer champion, I was relishing this role and I worked amongst the team. And to be fair, my initial reaction was a little bit of a shock because it's quite an old business and group of individuals. But what they did try to do is show some modern positioning and attack on how they would handle problems in the industry. Now, flash forward to where we are today, 10 years later. Has ABTA changed? In my eyes, no. They remind me, unfortunately, of this drifting tanker in the big, wide ocean with very little steerage of which way and direction it's going. And I don't want to come across as harsh because I love the fact that we have these founding businesses and agencies and associations within the industry. But a long time ago, there used to be the ABTA sticker in every travel agent, proudly showed off as a mark of accreditation. People used to have stickers at the front of their magazines and brochures they used to hand out. And ultimately, when websites were launched, they were proudly positioned at the top of websites. Now, I'm the first person to say, when you go around all these agencies now and look on the website, how many times do you see the ABTA logo proudly showed off? What does it represent anymore? And ultimately, if it doesn't represent anything, and if it's not bringing the agencies together and supporting the consumers in the way it should, why do we have it?
That's a very good question, and one we need to get into, which we will. And going to you, Will, would you agree with James's sentiment that you've been around for a very long time in the world of travel? What does ABTA mean to you?
They have been around a long time, exactly to James's point, and they had a much bigger identity than they do now. But the world of travel has changed. It's moved on. It's more digital. You didn't have OTAs when ABTA started, and I think just in terms of the trends of how travel is consumed and purchased, it is a very different look and feel. But to say that it's doesn't have a future, I think is a very bold statement. I think it needs to evolve, absolutely. But I still think, and certainly to our generation, it means something. And the badge actually means something. Yes, there are other protections out there, and what they've suffered from is a lot of competition over time. But yeah, a little bit of tweaking, the name will come back. It will be an important part of what they do. And I think, where they've shifted and probably shifted too far is to a lobbying body. And I think they've been reasonably successful about being a lobbying body. But I think they need to get that balance back. Yeah, but I see a future. I'm positive for it.
You just very quickly, James mentioned about the fact that the ABTA logo, what does it mean? And I think ABTA have done their own research that suggests over the last decade, when they've done independent, this isn't their own research, research into what the ABTA logo means. It usually means a recognition of trust for the end consumer, and has been shown that people will pay a little bit more for their holidays if they see an ABTA logo. But obviously that is certainly something which they are talking about. James, you're maybe not so agreeable on that point.
Okay, so I'll put it differently. If I was setting up a tour operator tomorrow, or if Will was and I were setting up a tour operator tomorrow, we go get our ATOL license, the consumer is protected, and they have full reassurance financially should anything happen to our business. We can then go get a Trustpilot, a Feefo accreditation for our member customer service, and we can put those stickers at the top of our website. Why on earth am I going to go take an association and license in with ABTA to put that at the top of my website and pay for it when it provides what?
Well, I think that's the point to discuss. Will, what's your view on that?
I hear what you're saying, but the bottom line is that ABTA doesn't provide the protection itself. But what it does, it's a bit like the sort of ombudsman. It's making sure that the protection is adequate to actually cover and protect the consumer. So I think it's taking it a step further. And that's got to mean something. I think one of the challenges that I have with this industry is they have all the regulation. You've got the package travel regulation, but then who is actually going out and checking that people are adhering and have the correct coverage? Because it doesn't matter seemingly until something goes wrong, and then it's too little too late. So yeah, there are plenty of other options out there. It is an additional cost, but you're getting that extra reassurance that it actually does mean something and your protection is in place.
Okay, so it's an extra cost to your business, fees that keep continually are going up as we're reading in the trade press. And when was the last time you saw ABTA take some really good TV advertising or radio advertising to tell the consumer that's what they do as an industry body? Have you opened a magazine or newspaper recently and said what ABTA does?
Whoa. I didn't say that it didn't need to change. I did not say that it didn't need to modernize. And like everything, or a lot of things we've discussed in this podcast, it's a case of communication or poor communication that is the problem here. So actually, we need to get back to this education piece. And this is where they were really good before, is actually providing that messaging to the industry, to the consumer that, make sure that your holiday is ABTA protected. Make sure you have this protection in place. And they were the ones that championed it. I remember getting in this industry a long time ago, 26 years ago now, and no one was talking about ATOL protection. No one outside. That didn't mean anything. It was all about ABTA. Where, to your point, the ATOL protection was probably for most people on a package holiday the more meaningful one. But there is something there that if they can get it right, if they can get the messaging right, they are the people that are championing it, and I fluffed that, so I'm going to come back to it. If they can get it right, they're the people that have always been good at that messaging historically, maybe been taken over by some other bodies, but they have such a place and such a history within this industry. I think it would be disastrous if that kind of legacy went.
And I think just to add to that, the idea that ABTA is just there for financial protection, I think, is part of perhaps a different mindset. They do offer a huge amount. We talked about the training, the networking, the lobbying. They are there to represent the travel industry. I think we can all agree with that. But I guess from the next sort of point is like, well, why are people so upset? Is it the fees? Is it they need to do more lobbying? Obviously, we've been through COVID, and there was question marks, I think, with lots of organisations about how much they're pushing the government on various things. How much support actually do those ABTA team provide? Are they listening to that feedback? Are they doing regional meetings? I believe they are. Should they be offering more legal support, more support around the changes in European legislation? Why do you think that people are grumbling so much, James?
Well, and Will mentioned the CAA. Don't get me on the CAA. We'll come. That's a whole other episode because that's another one. But let's just going back to what ABTA are trying to do. So I agree with you. There's lots of things they do in the industry, which is positive. They create a community that they allow travel agents and tour ops and businesses to come into a room together to learn, to network. But again, even those have declined. I've been a proud sponsor of these events. I've worked with ABTA for years. We still send people to what is one of the most expensive parties in the travel industry at the end of the year. But
networking, James, networking,
yeah, right. But apart from the networking, outside of that, which again still isn't a modern version of networking, I generally feel that with the increasing competition from the likes of ABTA and alternative insurance protection models, and you can get consumer conferencing and advice and support from multiple different locations within the travel industry. So put those to aside, you then start looking inward and going, okay, so now they're an ombudsman to the consumer, but the consumer rarely knows about ABTA now because you don't see them anywhere. So you cross that off. And before you know it, you start crossing off. And then you look at the size of the business, the fees going up, the structure of the business. And what we have heard is incredibly expensive individuals to maintain and keep in that business from a leadership perspective. So, for me, it's the Thomas Cook in the waiting. This business needs to absolutely change on a flip of a coin and modernize, or it won't be here in 10 years.
Preferably not with the crash in the middle.
Yeah.
The smooth transition, I hope.
Phoenix from the flames. Where was he just talking absolute twaddle here? James just sounds a bit like a grumpy travel guy that's been around for too long.
He's not having a good day today, is he? I do get some of the sentiment of what he's saying. I do understand that, and I do agree with the point that they need to change, and they probably does need to be a sort of a flip on a coin to move to that. But I think if you look sort of under the lid a little bit at the appointment they made of Michael Budge coming from the CAA, I think the direction of travel is going in the right place. They are just trying to find their feet. And what I would contest is, and I work in financial protection, that is my bread and butter. Who else means as much in the industry in terms of financial protection? Nobody does. You can say ABTA to me, you can say Advantage, you can say PTS, you can say TTA, you can say all of these names, and they all do a good job across the board in the fields that they do. But ABTA has always been the shining light, and if they can get the direction of travel right, they have got, as I said, all the messaging, all the support, all the education pieces. They bring it together, and I will contest you to watch this space because I think change is coming, and I think it will be impressive.
When is this change going to happen? How many failures have we seen over the past 10 years? When was the last time you saw ABTA take out a serious stance in the trade press or even in the national newspapers about how it's trying to really support the trade, or it's trying to change the current of the trade. When there's this crisis going on, you just don't see enough from ABTA. What they do is they share data, they share responses. 40% of our members are happy at the moment. 32% of our members are doing bookings at the moment. Come out there, build up the consumer confidence. It's safe to travel if they have an ABTA logo. We'll protect you, we'll do this. There's not enough being done. This is an industry, it's a lifeblood.
So you're feeling the money's being squandered or not being used efficiently enough?
Mismanaged. It's just like Thomas Cook, as I said, is the best example for it. It's a business with so much opportunity, and it's being mismanaged.
But the numbers don't lie though, because they have seen a drop in membership, and that is partly due to the way that people are buying travel. We've talked about this. If I could get some of these things through other providers, I'm not going to renew my ABTA. And is that necessarily ABTA's fault when the whole landscape has changed over the last 2 decades? There's also part of me that thinks there are lots of businesses that have once upon a time may have supported an independent organisation who will lobby on their behalf, do the best for the industry, and the ROI. Do you know what? As long as there's a body, as Will alluded to earlier on, that's representing our sector, then I'm going to support it. What you're feeling is they need to do more, be more open about that. And I guess maybe Will, what's your take? Again,
well, I'm going to just come here and say also, talking about trade bodies, there are bodies like now, for instance, if we look at ATAS, so looking after the touring sector, who do a fantastic job of creating that community, doing the training, doing the workshops, bringing partners together, and creating new relationships. You've got Clear within the cruise industry. There are these sub-bodies who are doing fantastic jobs, running also better events, might I say, when it comes to networking and bringing people together. So ABTA are watching their lunch, dinner being eaten right now. They're left with their breakfast. It's not long.
But I think the fact that you obviously hold them in very high esteem and high regard in terms of, what you're saying about them. And if they got it right, then it would actually be meaningful. And I think that's the whole point, that they do actually have something against these other ones. If you take ABTA out of this whole equation, it completely changes the landscape. And I don't think necessarily for, to a good place.
I think it does.
So let's get some meat on this bone then, James, because if you're saying that ABTA needs to change, and you sort of alluded to some think points here, let's do less of the beating up and think more positively. What are the things you want to see more from ABTA in terms of, your wish list, I guess?
Okay, so let's just look at their forthcoming training schedules and how to deal with customer service, or looking at customer complaints, or looking at the latest ATOL regulations. Yes, that's great. There's some of the bog standard stuff that we need to see. But where are the future training courses on AI and I was going to say modern marketing, but I know you spoke at the last marketing event.
It's here. It's right here. It's the modern marketing. Shut your face.
There we are. So, but let's look at that forward training plan. Let's build up a massive training course. Look at the likes of ITT, bringing in the amount of students into the industry. How can we evolve that? How can we look at our consumer presence? Well, ABTA should be on the high street. They should be seen more broadly. And I'm sorry, if they're going to survive, they need to remind the consumer that basically without an ABTA logo, you should be wary of booking with someone. I do not think 10 people outside on the high street, if I asked them right now, would you book with this business, and just showed them a standard website that didn't have an ABTA logo, I doubt they would say, oh no, it doesn't have an ABTA logo.
Okay.
I think they would, subject to what generation they're from. I think it still means something to them. And you brought up ITT, and I would suggest that ITT was in a similar position a few years ago, and they've actually changed up what they're doing. I think that's still got a long way to go, but that's not a trade body, so not going to pick on them today.
And they've changed their board members. They've done a big increase of new board members. So they've now got, for instance, the Greek National Tourist Office on there. The first time they brought a DMO onto the board. They've got Claire Steiner, obviously, on there from a training perspective to look at the youth employment and how they can do training and onboarding. So they're trying to modernize, and that's what you need to see. And I can't see it happening. You might see it happening, but I don't.
I think the training courses they run are largely industry focused and industry fed back. Like the amount of feedback forms I've filled in over the years from the things I've attended goes into the dozens, and I think they are trying quite hard to find the opportunities to educate. There's also, I guess, to some of the point we've talked about here, perhaps an overemphasis of commercialization. You know, are those events being run for the industry, or are they being run to make money? And I think we talked about this in other episodes, where every company is scratching around for some extra quid. So I don't criticize them for running those courses. Could they be more modernized? Yes. I'm not entirely sure ITT are necessarily where they should be either. I think they've got more to be doing. And I think ABTA, if you took them out, is definitely going to be in a hole. But Will, what would be the thing that you'd be changing if you were at ABTA? Would you be doing the brand stuff? Would you be offering more services or even less?
I think they need to get back and understand who they are and what they are. I think they are an advice body, a communication body, consumer champion in this industry, and I don't think there's one out there. If I'm going to be really harsh, this will probably backfire. I think there has to be potentially a change of leadership, a change of direction, because I agree with Jason's point, it needs freshening up. But my whole sort of criteria to this and my overwhelming sense is they have real weight behind them as a body. And if they can get it right, then they do become a really important part, as they were to the industry. Unfortunately, other people have come in, competitions come in and kind of taken over and taken some of the market share. But if they can get it right, yeah, you don't want to lose this from the British travel industry.
More point, James. Go on. I can see it itching. Go on.
I was just going to say, I think we're in an era where brands in travel, tour ops, are actually dining more out on a which recommended provider status, which is another consumer champion. 10 million households in the UK are aware of the which brand. So it's very big. And I think there's a lot of tour ops now who are leading with more of a which recommended or a Trustpilot or a Feefo over potentially showing what was a very iconic badge. And to Will's point, yes, a change in leadership and a change in direction may change and modernize ABTA. I still personally feel it's too late unless something dramatic happens. And it's got to be modernized and brought into the future of where travel sits.
Okay, so let's think about the future then. Let's fast forward from this conversation in the middle of 2026. We do the podcast in 2030, and we're still here and we're still sharing our opinions on what's happening. Where do you think ABTA is in 2030? Do you feel there's a big brand campaign that's going to come? Do we think there's a change of board, or perhaps to James's negative ninny today, you know, there isn't an ABTA? Will, I'll come to you on that one. Where do you think we're going to end up with things? Is it just float along and trundle along, or does some radical stuff happen?
I think it's going to align how the industry looks at things like regulation. I think it's going to align training courses, etc. You know, from the insurance arm we have, you know, people want us to be an ABTA partner. They want us to be a registered insurer within that list. That means something. So if it didn't mean something, people wouldn't buy that way. People wouldn't consume that way. I think the membership and its role are two different things. And that's possibly where the kind of confusion is getting a little bit in terms of all of this. So yeah, I'd like to see them play a more active lobbying role, a more active sort of regulatory role. And I think there will be a time where there's a greater crossover with the CAA, and there's that alignment between the non-licensable and licensable turnover. And if they can modernize that.
James, you're not as positive, are you? Come on.
Given their press release today was customers increasingly value travel insurance in light of the situation of the Middle East, which was dated the 1st of July. And we know how long the Middle East conflict's been going on and how much sense that press release makes. I can't see the association continuing beyond 5 years at this current pace. think it needs something either massive, dramatic, or the fees will end up becoming so high to fund the operation that ultimately everyone will leave it.
There we go. I think that's a very poignant place to end it, I think. Interesting and insightful and opinionated conversation on where we are with ABTA. Thank you very much, both.
Thanks to our sponsor, Travelzoo, the club for travel enthusiasts. Join Travelzoo today for hand-picked deals exclusively for members.
I'm going to now go to a few questions just to try and wrap this conversation up. Quick fire, please, both of you. Will, if you were going to start a travel operator today, which you have done in your past, would you join ABTA? Yes or no?
No, too expensive. Come on. But if I was 5 years down the line in my operation, it's the badge that I want.
Okay, that's a very good answer and a fair answer. James, then, so do you believe in a year's time the current ABTA board will still be in place? Yes or no?
No.
No. Why no? You're saying change will happen.
Change needs to happen, but the board will remain.
Okay.
I think they're stuck in there. I think there needs to be some greater shock, and that won't come just yet.
Okay. And if you had to change one thing about how ABTA is working right now, I'll come back to you, James. What is the one thing you would change apart from the board? If you're saying that's the biggest thing, what's the next biggest thing?
Consumer awareness. Get back to your roots. Get back to your roots and make sure everyone is aware of what ABTA stands for and why there's value associated to that logo.
Will, was that the same for you? Or we got something different?
Yeah, communication. That's where it is. They have the opportunity to get back to being that champion. They positioned themselves previously to have that voice. They've got to get back to that.
So there we go. All the world's problems, all of ABTA problems can be solved with a big comms campaign in 2027 and a few new people on the board. There we go. Very simple. Or maybe not. Thank you very much, gents. That's been absolutely fascinating. And there we go. That's our discussion on the subject of ABTA and what role it does or doesn't play in 2026. It's a brand that everybody knows, and I hope that you listening or watching have an opinion on where you think ABTA could improve. We welcome every comment, every feedback, every like that we get. So please find us on YouTube. Let's Talk Travel Podcast. We're on LinkedIn as well. Let's Talk Travel Podcast on there. And if you're listening on any audio platform, please like or review or follow us. All comments will be read and very much appreciated. That's it for this time, and see you for the next one.